What if I told you that one of the best ways to get more done as a creative person is to do less, to lower your expectations, and to measure your progress based on achieving the minimum rather than the maximum. If this is something that is not familiar to you and you're trying to create more in 2026, you are trying to do more in different areas of your life, whether it's your physical fitness, whether it is socializing, whether it is painting, whatever your goals are, and you're trying to get there by doing more, you want to stick around and watch this video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Ash. I'm a creative and spiritual guide, and I work with primarily neurodivergent women and queer people who are in a chapter of rediscovering who they are. A lot of the people who I work with are newly out of a relationship, and they're trying to create their best life. They are trying to create a life that they really feel excited by. And one of the things that they tend to do is set very high expectations, very high standards of themselves. And then they struggle to show up because they have set such a high standard that it feels like they're always failing. If you find yourself in this pattern, then I want to talk to you about the power of starting small. So a few weeks ago, I shared a video where I recapped the progress that I made maintaining an illustrated journaling practice over the course of 2025. And I was looking back at what I was doing even before I started that illustrated journaling practice a year ago. And I remembered that early on, I had set a goal for myself that I wanted to draw a few times a week for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I was at a point where I was working a lot. I had gone from working about 30 hours a week to working about 50 hours a week. And I knew that maintaining my art practice was really important to me, but that I didn't have a lot of bandwidth and I didn't have a lot of time. So one of the things that I was really struggling with at that time was it was taking me too much time to figure out what I wanted to draw. And so I would take, that 10 or 15 minutes and I would not waste, but it would just take me, 5 minutes to even decide on the picture that I wanted to use as my inspiration. So what I decided to do was draw from the photos that I have on my phone. And what did I have? A ton of photos of dogs, because I do pet care as part of my work. I walk other people's dogs. I take care of them when they're on vacation. And so I have hundreds of photos of dogs that I work with on my phone. And I just decided that a few times a week for about 15 minutes, I would just draw whatever dog was on my phone. Now, I did not love the drawings when I first got started doing it. I found it very difficult. And I was reminded that at that point in time, I was at this drawing group that I go to, and the person sitting next to me was really impressed with what I was doing. And he said, "I'm not talented enough to draw dogs. I tried to do it and it was just too hard." And what I told him was that I have gotten better from just doing it. I have gotten better just from setting my expectations low, knowing that my drawings aren't going to be exactly what I want them to be. But if I keep doing this for 10 to 15 minutes a few times a week, I'm going to get progressively better. And that led to me drawing 100 dogs over the course of a couple weeks. And that allowed me to build enough momentum that a few months later, I started my illustrated journaling practice, which was a lot more time and it took a lot more dedication for me to maintain that practice. But I was confident that I would be able to continue showing up for it because I had started with a much smaller goal. What I'm talking about here with these different frameworks of drawing for 15 minutes, this is the subject matter, it's what's on my phone to make it easy, is creating a minimum viable practice. And a minimum viable practice is a commitment to showing up for practicing something that feels very, very achievable. Like even kind of embarrassingly achievable, embarrassingly low expectation, okay? And so this is something that when I'm working with my clients, I will see a lot of times, they want to write a novel, let's say, but they haven't gotten into a rhythm of writing every week. And it's kind of like the, old saying of you can't run before you can walk. Okay, so if I want to write a novel, but I'm not creating a minimum viable writing practice and maintaining that first, it's like I am going into kindergarten and getting my crayons out, and then I'm expecting myself to be able to write an essay with a thesis statement. Okay, we haven't built the stamina, we haven't built the skills, we haven't built the confidence. And so a minimum viable practice is something that feels really easy. It feels kindergarten level. It feels like this is something that I can show up for again and again and again. And one of the beautiful things that happens once we set a minimum viable practice and we continue to show up for that is that we do gain the skills, gain the confidence, gain the stamina that then allows us to persist through the challenges that come when we are progressing and going deeper into our practice. Your minimum viable practice is focused on the process. It's focused on how can I make this process easier, smoother, more enjoyable. So in the example of drawing, when I was working on drawing my dogs a few times a week, I realized, it would be a lot easier for me to do this if I maybe took some lessons on YouTube where I just learned about the facial structure of a dog and how do I, make my process of drawing that a lot easier and organic. So I picked up some skills there, and that allowed me to move from always having to draw in pencil to being able to draw in pen most of the time and still feel like I was doing a decent rendering of a dog. An example of fitness might be that if we want to start going to the gym, maybe we want to start by setting a goal of going on a walk every day for 15 to 20 minutes. Or we want to set a goal of doing a 10 to 15 minute YouTube workout video twice a week at home, and we can set that as the minimum. You can always do more than the minimum, and then you get that good feeling of having accomplished the goal and surpassing it. But if we do the opposite, which is what most people I see do, right? So in the example of drawing, instead of setting that minimum practice of 10 to 15 minutes a few times a week, or even maybe 10 to 15 minutes one time a week, instead what they do is they set a goal of, I want to write a novel by the end of this year. I want to write every single day, or like the example of National Novel Writing Month where you haven't been writing at all. And then in November, you're going to write 1,600 words every day. That's like going from, I haven't gotten up off of the couch to go for a walk in a year, and now I'm going to go try and run a marathon. And that is exhausting, and it sets you up to feel like you're failing, right? Because we've set that standard that we're measuring ourselves against at such a high level when we haven't built any systems, any framework, any momentum or stamina that's going to help us to rise up and meet that level. Start small and show up, because small, consistent steps taken over time always results in momentum and progress. But 0 steps taken over time always results in 0 progress. progress. So if you start small with a tiny commitment, something that feels easy and natural for you, and you focus on celebrating all of the little wins along the way, you are going to get so much further than if you set very big, high goals for yourself and then you never feel like you can meet them, you never feel like you can measure up to them. We want to set ourselves up for success by giving ourselves opportunity to create a lot of little wins along the way. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday because I was recording a video of myself playing guitar. I posted a reel on Instagram. It's not something I do too often because guitar is definitely an area where I am still very much gaining confidence, but I was thinking about how over the last couple of years of playing guitar, my minimum practice is 15 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. That is an amount of guitar playing that I feel like I can pretty easily get into my daily life, my weekly life. I definitely don't even try to do it every single day. And there's definitely weeks where I don't get it in at all. It's kind of at the bottom of my list of things that I'm trying to accomplish every single week. Even so, I was amazed how much progress I had made, the ability that I had to maintain a consistent rhythm, to make my guitar chord changes and just kind of be relaxed on camera playing guitar and share it for other people and share it with people who I know who, enjoyed listening to me play. And I was able to achieve that goal because I had a very low goal in mind when I started learning to play guitar. I had a goal that was, I just want to be able to play some songs and use this instrument as a way to kick back and relax and enjoy my life. So that's what my practice time was set up around, and that's what I was able to achieve within a couple of years. Now, if I had set my goal as I want to put out an album by the end of this year, then I am forcing myself into having to learn everything about songwriting, everything about creating and structuring albums, how to write lyrics, how to get all of my chord changes down and all of that kind of stuff. Now, sometimes that is a method that can work. Sometimes just throwing yourself into an experiment is something that is valuable. But for most of the people that I work with, they just want to get into maintaining a consistent rhythm with a creative practice, with a physical fitness goal that they have, with a business that they are trying to create, and they are just learning how to walk right now. They are not at that point where they want to go out and run the marathon. And the beautiful thing is also, once you build that momentum slowly over time and you just allow yourself to trust your pace, trust your process, and celebrate all of the little wins along the way, then when those opportunities come for you to throw yourself into an experiment where you are going to train for a marathon, you are going to go and try to do a large scale painting, or you are going to try to submit a piece of work to a literary magazine or something like that, you have that system, that structure, that framework that is already supporting you to put the wind behind you and make that push so much easier. And that is the power of starting small and continually showing up for a minimum practice over time, rather than putting yourself in a position where you always have to go for the end result first. If you are stepping into or preparing to step into a new chapter in your life where you want to maintain these practices that make you feel confident, that make you feel like you respect and honor yourself, that make you feel like you're really being the best version of yourself every day. And you are working through healing from relationship patterns that always leave you feeling like you can't prioritize the things that are important to you because you have to prioritize everyone else before yourself. If you are ready to really accept and embrace your authentic self, so that you can really move through the world with confidence and clarity, then Spiritual Being is my group coaching container. And every week I meet with people on Mondays to provide personal coaching in a group setting. Each person gets about 15 to 20 minutes to support you through whatever challenges are coming up with you. So if this idea of setting a minimum viable practice is like blowing your mind, you will love Spiritual Being and you will love the group coaching calls that we do on Mondays. And then on Wednesdays every week, we have rituals where I provide journal prompts, I provide different ways of approaching vision boarding, guided meditations, and these rituals really help people to feel more self-assured, feel more confident in who they are becoming, and really meet the person that they are meant to be, which if that's something that's of interest to you, you might want to check out last week's video about connecting with the future version of yourself. If you're interested in more information about Spiritual Being, I'm going to drop that link in the description below this video. Otherwise, I hope that you stick around on this channel, like and subscribe, and I will see you around more this year.